Don't adjust your earballs. It is another episode of the Breaking Down Security Podcast. I'm Brian Brake, and as always, with me is Miss Berlin and Mr. Betcher.
Yo.
Hi.
Hey. So, So it's Oscar season. Who's watching the Oscars right now?
Not me.
Not me.
Mr. Come on, Betcher. Why do you have a shirt on that says "I love me some Oscars"? Why you got that? No. I
actually have a bear with a pencil and a Scantron, and it says "Stop Animal Testing."
Okay. I didn't. Okay.
I have my Sans Network shirt on.
Oh, and I have a solid blue shirt on. So
They didn't give me a shirt.
I got mine from Jason Blanchard at Derby or Circle City Con or something.
Oh,
I don't know. He was walking around with them. It's one of my favorite shirts. It's like that soft material.
Right. Did you actually have to take the Net Wars to do it, or did that
No.
was just shot? Oh, okay. I was gonna say, because I was on doing the Net Wars thing in San Diego last year, but I didn't actually get one. So
You could yell at Jason.
I will definitely do that. Yeah, I didn't do very well. I think we came in second place as a team, so that kind of sucked. So, what has everybody been doing this week?
I went to a hockey game.
Oh, right. Yeah, you were telling me about that. The AAA hockey team.
Yeah.
And
Toledo. So my oldest is turning 16 on Wednesday.
What? 16?
Which
No.
Scares the crap out of me. Yeah. And so me and my middle child went and wrote down. It was called Pink at the Rink. They were doing like a Susan G. Komen for the cancer cure game.
Mm-hmm.
So they passed out a bunch of pink like pom-poms, and then you could write a message on like these pink signs. So we wrote "Happy Sweet 16, Michael."
Nice.
And then I donated so his name could be up on the board. And then my middle child actually made it on the big Scantron with the big Jumbotron with the sign.
Oh yeah.
Before Michael even knew we had made it.
Nice.
So it was pretty great. Yeah.
Very cool.
I really enjoy embarrassing my children. Wednesday's gonna be the best. Like I have to call the school on Monday because I have that blow up Velociraptor costume.
Right.
I'm good at taking a cake to school.
As a Velociraptor.
Nice.
As a Velociraptor. I have to call the school and make sure it's okay first because I don't want to like show up and get shot.
Why would they shoot you for wearing a Velociraptor costume?
You can't see my face.
Oh yeah, well that is a good point, but it's not like Oh
I
my
could
God!
I don't know.
It's not like
You can pin
dinosaurs.
your ID.
I can see it showing up on like national news, like Velociraptor shot for
Right. Yeah,
with a birthday cake.
With the birthday cake, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that would be awful. So. Mr. Betcher, how was your week? What did you try to get accomplished since your internet?
This very large oak tree, a post oak tree, and I don't even know how old it is, so I have to count the rings.
Oh,
blew over in a storm.
Uh-oh.
And so I cut the trunk and put it on a trailer. Thankfully, I finally got it on the trailer. It's probably weighs 100 tons, and I'm going to make a big old table out of it. So I've been noticing that, the past few days, people have been showing their path to InfoSec, like where they started. Right. So my first job was as a carpenter. So I'm going to make a table because I have the carpentry's skills and things like that. So yeah,
that's awesome.
It's going to make me a very unique table with the drawers underneath, because I'm thinking, well, why, if you need a knife, why should you have to get up, go all the way into the kitchen, open the drawer, get a knife, and walk back? Why can't you just be sitting there and open the drawer and pull out the knife?
That's not bad.
That is a good idea.
So I'm going to put all the silverware in the table.
That's
very nice.
That's a really good idea.
So speaking of paths to InfoSec, Ms. Berlin, I put mine up on Twitter, of course.
I saw, yeah.
How did you do? What is your path to InfoSec?
Okay, I'll read mine. Hold on.
Okay.
So I don't have to think about it again. So my first job was a peach picker. I lived next to a peach orchard.
Right.
Right. And I also moved ladders around and directed traffic.
Okay.
And then I worked on a farm. I packed cucumbers and peppers and gourds. That was super fun. And then I was a cashier and I loaded like feed and bags of other miscellaneous stuff at Tractor Supply. I sold chrome and stainless steel to semi-truck drivers.
Okay.
And then I put down I was web design for a wallpaper company, but I really didn't do web design. You know those giant wallpaper books? Like if you go to the store and they had, these, they're like 1.5 foot by 1.5 foot wallpaper books that you could look at the patterns.
Uh-huh.
I'd actually take those books apart and scan them into a Yahoo store. And it was technically called web design.
Okay.
Didn't do anything with web design.
Huh. Okay.
And then I actually got my real IT job. I was a help desk for an ISP.
Nice.
Then worked for a hospital. And then I did like net admin and then like Windows admin stuff. And then I finally got into network security.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's over like,
very nice.
What would that be? Over 10 years, maybe? All of that?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. So I'm my path to InfoSec. I'm a picker, a grinner, a lover, and a sinner. And I like playing music in the sun. And I actually got it wrong. It's a joker, a smoker, and a midnight toker. And I get my love on the run. And people like to call me Maurice. So, yeah. Other than that, that's pretty much how I got into InfoSec. So that was the first thing I thought of when people were like, "Oh, this is how I got to." I was like, "Oh, well, I'll just be all those things." So
some of the responses are pretty good, and the one that I think I was very interested in is somebody said that they were a fake skin maker.
Ew.
I'm like, I need to know to know more about this.
No, that creeps me out.
Yeah,
it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up when you say fake skin maker.
It's a lot of the same ingredients that's used to make gum.
Okay. Maybe for like a makeup artist or something, I could see that. I could see something like that.
I don't know exactly why they said it was called hydrocolloid. It looked like skin, behaved like skin, and felt like skin. I used to cut the ingredients, pectin, Vistanex, and Blanos to be exact. I used it to cover skin draft donor sites.
Right. Okay. Hydrocolloid dressing. Nice. Opaque or transparent dressing for wounds. Very nice. Okay.
Interesting.
Well, that's going to have to go in the show notes now.
I used to just use like the Elmer's glue in elementary, right?
Yeah.
You just put the Elmer's glue in your hand and peel it off.
I used to eat paste, so yeah.
Then you move on to real skin.
Got my Chianti over here. So, all right. Well, we actually do have some InfoSec stuff to talk about. Last week, I think, Ms. Berlin added a link to our show notes about security control frameworks, and there's this company called Secure. Well, it's not. It was a company, right? It is a company.
Yeah, I think it is. They actually sent me an email and it was like the guy that came up with it, and he was super nice.
Right. Let me see here.
Like, obviously, they do stuff.
Compliance Forge.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard of them. Verutus. Verutus. Anyway, they're an LLC. So they've created this compliance framework, super framework, if you will, with the idea. And I've done this in the past, where got a customer and they're like, well, we need to know how our controls match up with both, NIST framework, ISO framework, HIPAA, and GDPR. And paid time to map out the various things, how this control in PCI maps to the one in a HIPAA or GDPR or what have you, and and on top of that, then you would have to go, well, do they have that control in place, or is that something that they need to do, or what do they need to do to actually fix it?
And this has like everything. Everything that I can think of is on here.
Well, and more even, because it has information on like even state-based states, like U.S. states, like Texas. There's privacy requirements in there. Some I've never even heard of before, like COPPA, which is the something like online children something. Anyway. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. So the idea is they break them down by various obligations. So statutory obligations, which is U.S., state, federal, and international laws. Regulatory obligations, requirements from regulatory bodies or government agencies. Contractual obligations, so stipulated in contracts, vendor agreements, etc. That would also be like PCI and HIPAA. Or industry recognized leading practices. So like best practices, the CIS top 20 or, CIS benchmarks, if those were in there. So, it's difficult though, because this isn't a security thing. This is strictly a compliance thing. I mean,
right.
There's a lot of compliance requirements out there that you may not even realize that you need to be following. So this might be helpful for those folks that need it.
Yeah, for example, there's 747 different controls that they list. For
Really?
incident response, I was just looking through, there's 15 of those.
Yeah.
One of which is mechanism exists to utilize a detonation chamber capability for IR operations. So that's the kind of detail that it goes into.
Wow.
And it maps that to how many frameworks? Oh man, this goes all the way to, and if you're in Excel, it goes to column DG.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all the columns. The columns are all the frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like CoBIT, it starts, I don't even know what the ones that it starts with, but it's like several different versions. So it lists like whatever that AICPA is. Oh, that's SOC 2.
Yeah.
It has like 2016 and 2017 versions, right? So like whichever one that you would need to comply with.
Yeah. So here's my question. Are there too many requirements then? I mean,
I think they all serve their purpose.
Well, so a lot of them align themselves with ISO standards anyway, right? ISO 27000, 27001, 27002. And damn Slack. I apologize to people who just checked their Slack. I apologize.
I was about to, go look.
I killed it. I'm sorry. So, all right. So there's all these various ones. Does it make sense to not follow? So if you're required to follow PCI, wouldn't it not make sense to find something that allows you to go beyond PCI? So
yeah, I think it's like, well, it wouldn't be the least common denominator. It'd be like the most common. I don't know. Whichever one covers them all.
No, that makes sense. That's perfect. So you wouldn't necessarily want to do the least common denominator. You'd want to do something like ISO standard, which would follow, PCI, HIPAA, a number of other different ones. But why don't they just follow the ISO standard instead of, having to have this large, Excel spreadsheet? Why do we need to map them in this case?
Well, because if you still have to prove it to PCI DSS, and you want to know, all right, well, I followed the ISO standard.
Right.
Which parts of the ISO standard am I following that maps to PCI that I now have to prove to this QSA?
Right. Well, I guess the way to satisfy something for HIPAA is different than PCI in this case. So, and it may be to a specific requirement. So HIPAA would require, say, WEP, because WEP for wireless encryption protocol, because that's all it needs, versus PCI, which would require additional hardened controls. So,
yeah, but I don't think you can just say like to the QSA like, or HIPAA auditor or whoever you have coming in, like, oh, I follow this ISO standard. Is that fine for you? And it's not.
Right.
I don't think they can just take your word on that. They have to go based on whatever checklist they have.
Right. It's not, but you may be able to take this document if you were to fill it out, right, and take the time to get it all nice and prepped. You could map everything in the PCI to this, right, and just export it. And I think it's for companies that have to adhere to several different frameworks. So they would fill this one out, and then whatever framework they have that's coming next. Let's say they have a customer that says, "Oh, you need some." Let me scroll all the way to the right here. Well, we need the Americas Canada PIP EDA. And you're like, what? And so you would just filter that out and say, oh, here you go, boom, and it would 5 seconds and you're done.
Yeah,
as long as this is all filled out.
Right.
And I do like the fact that they have in here the column that says methods to comply with SCF controls, because they call them SCF controls, like the generalized thing that they map everything else back to. But they'll say, like, okay, for this one, you should have a steering committee, you should have a digital security program, and this one you should have a written information security program. Or this one you should be doing ITIL. This one you should be using. There's one in here that's like for asset management, SolarWinds, CrowdStrike, Jamf, ServiceNow, whatever. But they give you options.
CrowdStrike under asset management?
That's what that says.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is that a typo, maybe?
To inventory system components.
Okay. I didn't. I mean, it's an endpoint security thing, right?
Right, but if you have all your endpoints in there.
Well, it just seems like, I'm singing that song, one of these things just doesn't belong here. One of these things,
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. That it gives you a method by which you can comply with those. Some of these things, the funny thing is they throw these things out here, like, and people who look at this go, oh, we'll just, implement, key performance indicators. It doesn't exactly tell you how to do it. It just says this is the thing you need to do to address that issue. Yeah. So this is not going to help solve your problems. This may actually cause you to have more problems.
So we apologize in advance.
Yeah. Don't go into it thinking this is going to solve all your problems. You just may have made yourself a lot more work. So, especially GRC tools. Do you know how many freaking GRC tools are out there?
Yeah.
And how many of them don't work or only do certain things?
Yep.
They're just god awful. All of them. So, I don't know. So it's free though. I mean, you can't hurt. Free doesn't suck,
Right.
I don't want to turn this into an advertisement for that, but there are other ones out there. There's Swift has one, which is the banking company. They have a secure control framework. CoBIT also has security frameworks that are available. You can utilize ITIL to do your security framework. We actually had a show back in 2014 or 2015 with a gentleman that Mr. Betcher knew, British gentleman. What was his name? Tim Wood. Yeah, I was talking about ITIL. So that was an interesting way of utilizing ITIL to do security or to make it service based. So there are a lot of them out there. All right. So was anybody caught up in the whole GitHub DDoS thing?
No,
but this document does have GDPR, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the GitHub DDoS.
Yeah, largest DDoS in history to date.
I heard they survived it though.
From what I gathered, they were down for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Because apparently there's a new way of doing amplification attacks, which for those of you that don't know what an amplification attack is so a bad guy will send something to a service like DNS where the reply back is so much more than what was sent in the initial request. So let's say the initial request is 150 bytes of information sent. The DNS servers or SNMP is another good one, will reply back with 512K of data because that's the entire request. So it's fairly easy to do things like amplification attacks because they'll spoof the response. So it'll be like me saying, okay, I want to contact, Mr. Betcher. I'm going to say, hey, Mr. Betcher, what's going on? I'm Amanda. And then he replies back to Amanda in real. And then, Amanda gets dropped offline because he doesn't realize that I'm the one who sent the original request. So apparently the new hotness is to use something called a Memcached D to send, amplification attacks. And they managed to do, it said 1.3 terabits of data to GitHub, and actually it was Akamai that took the brunt of that, from what I understood, because Akamai put out a blog post saying we had a client have a 1.3 terabit per second DDoS, but they didn't talk about the client. And then, GitHub came out and said, yeah, we had a DDoS of 1 point something terabits. So it was like, you take the breadcrumbs and you're like, you follow it, and it's like, oh, GitHub is hosted now by Akamai, and they had a DDoS. So, it was kind of interesting. So, apparently the whole issue stemmed from the fact that Memcached D leaves some UDP ports open. In this case, port 11211, which is a palindrome, by the way. It's read the same forwards as backwards. And this is what?
It's like Sesame Street version of breaking down security.
Yeah, exactly. But apparently this UDP port has been open forever. And it's in the documentation, but because people don't necessarily block port 11211, that allowed for people to, create amplification attacks up to 1.3 terabits. And from what I had gathered, there's only about 10,000 hosts that are running Memcached D on the internet, but apparently it's enough to it must be some fairly weighty stuff that they're pulling out of Memcached D. So,
right.
So are we ever going to see the end of these amplification type attacks, or it seems like we've kind of gotten the handle on the DDoS stuff with regards to SNMP. You don't allow SNMP to go out from your network. You don't allow, DNS, transfers to be able to be ran. Memcached D, it's just the first in line of new methods, right?
I think so. I mean, how many Whois servers are there? Like 200? And you type in an IP address and they send back a ton of data.
Right. Yeah, I guess Whois requests are not good either.
There's a lot of services like that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but for Whois, they tend to limit the number of Whois requests over time, right? So I would hope that you just haven't, dropped another method by which people can DDoS folks, unlimited Whois lookups, or what have you.
But there's not 10,000 Whois servers, though.
Yeah, well, because there's so many more DNS servers than there are Memcached D servers on, according to Shodan.
Right.
But it just seems like that there's a lot of information that's pushed out over that UDP port that you don't normally, would expect. So, yeah. So, I got some hacking stuff. I never did tell you guys what I did this weekend.
What did you do this weekend?
Well, I ordered a Chromebook because my wife, she's out getting her doctorate, so she had to travel to her school this weekend. I bought a Chromebook, and, I'd wanted one for a while because my daughter has one, and frankly, I was envious of it, and she wouldn't let me have it to play with. So, I wanted to get one because, I hear that they're very, very much secure, and I know that there are companies who are pushing those out, and it was something I thought, we could try working on at my company. And I know that that's not going to work for a lot of people because they like themselves some Linux. So one of the proof of concepts that I created was I was going to take the Chromebook and put Linux on it, or in this case, Debian. And took me about a day and a half to do that. It was install was a bit of a pain, but it was definitely worth it. I had the Chromebook I have is the Acer. Well, I better probably put that in the show notes.
Did you totally wipe the Chromebook aspect of it, and now it's a Linux machine?
I wanted to do that, but I wanted to be able to take this to a con, for instance, and, run Chrome OS, because it's one of the last ones, as far as I know, to be owned at things like Pwn to own. So I figured between the Linux, and if I decided I didn't want to use the Linux part, I could still boot up the Chrome OS, which is fairly lightweight and a lot faster. And I thought that same thing for people at my company, because, they want to do code, they want to do code development. They want to do, WebExes. They want to do stuff that, like VNC or whatever, or, SSH, which aren't always available in a Chrome OS format. So the idea was to kind of run them side by side, and I didn't want to tear the Chrome OS version out. I could have done that, and it probably would have been faster in hindsight, because the low profile USB drive that I used was only USB 2. So I actually bought some. Just before we started recording, I grabbed a couple of USB 3.1 low-profile drives, and I'm going to try it again, see if it's a little faster. Takes about 30 seconds to boot up into Debian 9.3, and the initial install, the wireless didn't work, so luckily I had a USB hub with Ethernet in it, so I was able to install from Ethernet and install the non-free firmware, because it uses Intel Wireless. The only thing I wasn't able to figure out how to do was the Intel HD audio. The sound card in it just won't work with ALSA. Maybe I'm not doing something right anyway, but I managed to remember that I have a Sound Blaster USB sound card that I think it was probably trying a new configuration of what podcast recording, but I managed to grab a Sound Blaster USB X-Fi Go or whatever. Minute I plugged it into USB port, I had audio. So plug and play, and it worked just fine. So graphics card worked on startup. Even the touchpad didn't work on the initial install, but on subsequent reboot, it does work. So it's regular Synaptic touchpad. So, you're not going to win any speed awards, but it works really well. I mean, I even ran Zoom. I was running Zoom on it, and the webcam worked, and, me and Ms. Berlin was looking at it, and, it was running. It was a little blocky. It was kind of like Mr. Betcher with his satellite internet earlier, but if you had to run a WebEx or something on it, that would be great. I installed Atom, so if you needed to do code development, or it would probably run a few Docker instances as well. I couldn't imagine it running a VM in only 4 gigs of RAM with 32 gigs of hard drive space.
Not well.
It won't run it well, yeah. It may run an Alpine Linux, but like I said, it probably would run a couple of Docker instances fairly decently. So, or Kubernetes. You could probably run some Kubernetes on there, or Linux containers. But yeah, Debian 9.3 runs on like a champ. So, if you're interested in a con box or something you want to take to Black Hat or DEF CON, it might be something. And it was only $200. So, I mean, you can't really beat that.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, especially if you can't trust the people you're around. It's a hostile environment.
I can never trust the people I'm around.
Yeah. So, I mean, HDMI works on it. I'm sure you can change up XRander and share screens or mirror screens or what have you. Very, very nice little machine. Again, like I said, it's not fast, but you can run Google Docs on it. You can, test out, code if you wanted to. It runs Python, runs all that stuff. So, yeah.
So did you do it this way? I found an article that says, unlike dual booting, that means you can switch between Chrome and Linux with a quick keyboard shortcut.
Yeah.
No reboots.
Yeah. Well, one of the things was you had to run a hack to add a BIOS to it. So CBIOS was one of the ones, SEA BIOS, so that you could create the necessary BIOS environment to boot the thumb drive. And you had to enable developer mode. And once you did that, every time it pops up, it comes with a white screen that says, "Oh, you've broken it." Either press spacebar to re-enable and get rid of developer mode, or hit Control D. And if you hit Control D, then it'll just boot up into Chrome. But if you hit Control L and hit Escape, then the boot menu comes up and you can boot to the thumb drive, which was fairly simple. But yeah, I mean. After that, it just took a long time to install because I needed 2 thumb drives. I needed to burn the ISO to the thumb drive and make it bootable, and then use the larger thumb drive to actually have the install of Linux on it. And yeah, once I did that, everything's great. I mean, and the battery life is phenomenal. I went 15 hours with a Linux install. So,
wow.
that's fantastic. So
yeah.
I will probably be bringing that to, conferences that I go to instead of my MacBook. So, and it's very light. Cool. So yeah, it works really well. So
yeah, there's also a tool called Crouton.
Yeah.
With you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crouton's a shroot. CH root, where you can actually run Debian inside of Chrome OS. And I thought about doing that, but I was like, I kind of wanted a more pure Linux environment just because that's the way I roll. So, but yeah, it was one of the easier things that I've hacked and rooted or, added additional firmware onto. So, that's really nice. Yeah, once I get the USB 3 drives, I bet it will be a little faster because installing things from package apt-get was a little on the slow side. So I only assume that it's a USB 2 thumb drive issue. So once I get that, I'll be able to DD the entire thumb drive over. So, but yeah, that was the one thing I was working on, and it's nice. My daughter loves the Chromebook because she can watch YouTube videos and do schoolwork because that's all she does at school on Chromebook stuff. So got a little jealous and wanted to test it out. So, but yeah. So I am extremely tired, and unless somebody else has something to discuss from an InfoSec point of view, we probably could just end it right now.
No, I don't have anything pressing to talk about.
Well, you've got your class.
Last class is tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have a whole lot of information to stuff into an hour. So.
Well, we could always add another session.
We might have to.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from your
Me too. I've got a lot of really good questions.
Yeah.
Like people hit me up in DMs all the time asking about the lab I have and about different event IDs, right. And and the Blue Team channel we have is fairly active too. So.
Yep. We didn't get any malware report. Did you have a quiet week, Mr. Betcher, on the malware front?
Yeah, pretty much. I will be, however, speaking with Michael at B-Sides Austin. So our talk is going to be kind of like what we did on BDIR, which is the phishing emails. Mm-hmm. So we'll do a presentation on how do you combat these things, etc.
When is B-Sides Austin?
It is, let's see, this coming Thursday and Friday, which is the 8th and 9th.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
It's sold out.
Oh, well,
there's a waiting list. Yeah,
that's the new thing.
I felt really bad because there was somebody in the channel in HallwayCon asking about B-Sides Nashville, and I'm like talking it up real big, and then I totally forgot it was sold out.
What? Okay, is that just the new thing? It's like B-Side Seattle was sold out and had almost 200 people on a wait list. Nashville sold out. B-Sides,
I'm just not used to B-Side selling out. You know?
B-Sides.
Yeah, it's like you could show up day of and say, hey, how much?
Yep.
Right.
$15. Here you go. Boom.
Right.
Yeah. B-Sides Columbus was sold out too, I think, which was this weekend. So B-Sides Columbus.
Oh.
Yeah. But I guess
this is throwing you guys a curveball, but we need to get as many listeners as we can to DerbyCon, right? And help them out, because last time there was a big snafu with the tickets and a lot of people didn't get to go. We were on the ball because we knew, and we had some I don't know, inside baseball from their Twitter and things that we were able to get tickets. Yep. A lot of people were really mad. And I think we should have like a B-side, a DerbyCon channel, just hints, tips, and tricks. And, if somebody has an extra ticket, they could sell it there. I think we need to really and plan it out. Like, here's the date, plan on, being there and all that stuff. It's in a bigger venue this year, etc.
Yeah. Well, DerbyCon's one of those odd ducks where you don't, and I don't want to say you don't need a ticket, but it's not necessary to have a ticket. And from what I understand this year with DerbyCon, the Hyatt is going to be available. The Marriott's going to be available where the actual conference is going to be. And then there's an Omni hotel, which is like right behind the Hyatt and the Marriott, that's going to be open by the time October comes around too. So there's going to be a glut of rooms in the immediate area within like a block. So if you can't get a ticket to DerbyCon, there's always people who have bought them and can't go, or something happens at the last minute and they have to cancel. So if you can't get a ticket, still get a hotel room and still come. It's very good conference. It's very good networking. It's very good opportunity. There's other things to do other than just the conference. There's, and
people are really good about letting you share their badge if you really want to go watch a talk.
I didn't say that, but yes,
I didn't hear that.
That may or may not occur. Amanda, you're screwing
only
with
if you're really, really nice.
Yeah.
And buy us a drink.
Yeah. The LobbyCon's gonna be awesome. I'm sure it'll spill over into the Hyatt because that was where it was for the last 8 years. So,
and we definitely have to do another meetup because this last one was really good.
We will do a meetup.
That was awesome, dude.
Yeah,
the pizza was fantastic.
I do what I can. I was sweating bullets hoping that the pizza would get there on time. So
it worked out well.
All right, so one more announcement. We have, I'm going to announce our other class that's going to be happening. So Ms. Amanda's class ends either this week or next week, depending on how much she's got in the class. Matt Miller, who we've heard on the show, his name's at Millhouse. He actually has some DerbyCon connections too. He wrote some of the reverse engineering CTF flags last year for their CTF. He reached out to me first of the year or so and said, "Hey, I'd like to do a class for you." And I said, "Okay, cool. What do you want to teach?" And he said, "Well, I can teach some of assembly and reverse engineering." And I was like, "Well, we're already doing that with Tyler." But Tyler's class was more of hey, here's what assembly is. And then we started talking about debugging, applications and malware and stuff. Matt's class is going to be strictly about assembly, understanding 32-bit architecture, both x86 and ARM. We may get into some x64 stuff in another class. So that's kind of the kicker. There's going to be two classes. He's going to have a beginner course on assembly and talking about some, data structures and stuff like that. And then there's going to be an advanced class where we're going to talk about ARM. We're going to break down basically Raspberry Pi One of the requirements for the advanced class is you've got to buy a Raspberry Pi 3. But there's going to be more information coming along, including syllabus and what have you. But the classes, we're going to do like a bundle thing. So each class, if you just want to do one class, the beginner class, it's $150. If you want to do the advanced class, it's $150. But if you want to do both classes, it's $250. So you're saving $50 on the deal for both classes if you want to sign up. We're going to use our PayPal like we normally do. You find that in the show notes as well. But it starts on 2nd of April. Mondays, like 6:30 in the evening, I think, around that time frame. So there'll be more information coming along. There'll be more information about the PayPal, but I just wanted to get it out there for people so they can, help us out. We do need a minimum of 10 people for the class, or it won't happen. So we figured that that's probably a good minimum for the class. So if you're interested in learning assembly, learning more advanced reverse engineering, maybe learning, this is a stepping stone to exploit development, perhaps, if you wanted to learn how, cracking open things and making them work, analyzing PE files, that kind of thing. Are PE files, or are they just headers? I forget.
Don't ask me. I don't know anything about that
stuff. They're both. Okay.
But I think this would, you don't have to necessarily say, oh, I want to be an exploit developer.
Right.
The more skills you get in different areas,
right,
the better off the brighter your future is, because you've dabbled in a bunch of different things, and
right.
you just don't realize how often these things come up.
Right.
I mean, when I went to college for 4 years in computer science, and I used those things almost every day.
Yeah.
And I bet you even people who haven't gone to college, but they took a few courses, they use the knowledge that they gain in those courses often. Or if they studied something on their own, or they dabbled in hardware, things like that. Mm-hmm. These things come up time and time again.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the first 4 sessions of his class. He's got session 1 is going to be assembly basics, registers, stacks, mnemonics, operations, add, sub, mul, div, mod. So it's add, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and or XOR not. Session 2, memory layout, talking about the stack. Talking about jumps, conditional and unconditional. Session 3, we're going to get into GDB, which is debugging, but it's in Tyler's class, we learned about Ollie debug and how to use that. This is strictly a Linux type class. So I already created the VM for the class. Binary Ninja is going to be used. So we're going to have a demo version of Binary Ninja. And we thought about, having contests for those who are in the class. A couple of people could get a Binary Ninja license, which is like $150 value. So we're going to make that available to people. But yeah, we do have to have a minimum of like 10 people for the classes. So if you're interested, please tell your friends, let people know what's going on. And we're going to start those on April 1st or April 2nd. April 2nd, 2nd of April 2nd, not April Fool's Day, the day after my wedding anniversary, 2nd of April. So, that's it for the week. And tell your friends about those classes. And so, Mr. Betcher, since I go with Miss Berlin a lot, Mr. Betcher, how would people get a hold of you or talk to you about malware or logging or what have you?
Twitter's the best place. Hit me up on the DM. My handle is @BetcherPwned, BOETTCHERPWNED.
Cool. Ms. Berlin, same thing for you?
I will actually be at B-Sides Indy this weekend. So there.
Sweet.
Right. Or on Twitter and in Slack, InfoSister, INFOSYSTIR.
Awesome. The official BrakeSec Twitter is @BrakeSec, BRAKESEC. You can find me on Twitter at Brian Brake. That's with a Y, BRYANBRAKE. We have a Slack channel. It's fairly active. It's invite only because we don't want bots. So, hit us up on Twitter DM or email bds.podcast@gmail.com. And we'll get you in there, and you can hang out with people. I just recently added the people that I was mentoring my 504 class with. So, hey, Glenn.
Switching this to invite only has not decreased the amount of people that are joining.
No,
either.
I thought it would, but it ain't. It ain't.
No.
Yeah. So Gear and Glenn and Chris, my mentees for Sec 504, I added them, and they seem to be enjoying it. So yeah, come on in and hang out and learn some things, and up your threat intelligence, because we post a lot of cool stuff, and a lot of interesting people in there. So we're on Patreon. If you are interested in leaving us a tip, please feel free to do so. It helps pay for website hosting and equipment upgrades and Zoom. So we're using Zoom now to record, so that pays for Zoom. So you're helping us, get the show out. So we're on iTunes. If you feel free to leave some feedback there, we would appreciate it. Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, Player FM, all those places. So that was it for breaking down security this week. Have yourself a great week. Please be nice to one another, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.